Hello and welcome to another Atypical Philosopher video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. I'm going to talk to you about someone who is really divisive, politically speaking. And in terms of when we're discussing identity politics, it is Elon Musk. Why am I talking about Elon Musk again? Because actually I mentioned him at the end of one of my Ukraine War Extra videos because he had been involved in this whole thing on Twitter because he is now the owner of Twitter, with suspending or banning permanently certain journalists. And it was all to do with changing the rules about live locations of entities. And that actually really affects geolocation and open source intelligence, because changing the rules means that technically they can't do that, which is a big component of the open source intelligence community, and therefore can affect even the outcome of certain aspects of the Ukraine war. So I thought this was interesting and pertinent to talk about, and also to mention the geopolitical aspects of, or at least the kind of moral philosophical aspects of banning journalists and his claims about free speech. Now, what happened as a result of me saying that, and I kind of predicted this, is that lots of people on that particular video took umbrage to me saying that, and possibly it has that many more comments because I mentioned Musk, and that really gets people going. And there were loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of people commenting about predominantly, or at least to some significant amount, about Trump. Sorry, Freudian slip again, about Musk, Elon Musk, and attacking me for criticizing Musk. Now, for some people, that was respectful, kind of challenging of my understanding of what was going on. For other people, it was a bit more, you've really annoyed me, you shouldn't be talking about this. And other people, it's like, I am literally unsubscribing to you because you criticize Musk. But for almost all of the criticisms that took place against me, virtually 100% of the criticisms against me completely misunderstood the facts around what happened. And so therefore, I feel I have to justify myself and what I was talking about. And in fact, I've written an article on this because it's quite, I guess, frustrating to be criticized by people who are actually misunderstanding or misinterpreting the events that took place, and then attacking me based on that misunderstanding. So I'm going to do a bit of clearing up, but also this is important just generally, sort of politically, for understanding Elon Musk, for understanding ideas of free speech. So the question might be, why is Elon Musk so divisive? And the thing is, identity politics affects us all, because actually our personal identity is made up of all the ideas we have, right? All these ideas, who your favorite bands are, what your fashion sense is, how you look, how you sound, everything about you, including the people that you like. And the people you like do include politicians, famous people, business people. Now, if they make moral claims, then it turns out that this is just me speculating here. It is a very simplified idea of psychoanalysis that I'm just presenting you. This is completely my own ideas here. But the idea I would see is that people who present themselves in the moral political dimension, that you align yourselves with, then become kind of an extension of your own core personality, and these might exist, as a more core understanding of that sense of self that you have. So in this more core sense of self, you will have people who you think, yeah, I love what you said, that's absolutely spot on. And one of those people, for example, might be Elon Musk, who might be sitting there as an idea, as a thing, and you think, and because we're not very good at being nuanced, we take someone as a whole thing, and they're either good or bad. So they're either with me or against me. So if I agree with something Elon Musk said here, so he says he's a free speech absolutist, he supports Trump, and so on and so forth. Right, he's my guy. What that means is you're actually not likely to take a nuanced view of someone like Elon Musk and say, he said some amazing stuff here and he's doing some really cool stuff here, but actually he's a bit bonkers and that thing he said was actually wrong. And I can understand this complex version of Elon Musk, that he is ostensibly good in these contexts, but bad in those contexts. We're not very good at doing that. So it's all or nothing for a lot of people. And what that means is Elon Musk, a bit more than say your favorite band, if you got, or one of your favorite bands, maybe the one that's not so core to who you are, if someone like says, "Oh, I hate that band," like you're down a pub and you're having a chat about what music you like, someone says, "Oh, I really don't like that band. That lead singer's a bit of an idiot," like, and you really like that band, you're able to disagree with that because it's not a core sense of your identity, so it's kind of exists out here, and you're like, oh, it's okay, we can still get on and we can have, because we are getting on in all these other ways, and you might just not like the band I like, it's not the end of the world. But if someone at the bar, so you get into a conversation with them and say, oh, I really hate Elon Musk, he's an absolute twerp, right, and this is why and this is why, and then to you Elon Musk is a core part of your political identity, and that could be Trump, that could be Biden, that could be Kamala Harris, it can be whoever. I don't really care, but they become an extension of who you are. So if someone insults them, they are insulting you. If someone criticizes them, they are criticizing you. And this goes some way to explaining these opinions. And these opinions that you guys have said on my YouTube uh, video look like a representation of this, which is you're attacking me. Like if you're telling me you've unsubscribed to my channel because I've criticized Elon Musk, you like 95% of what I say, but stay away from talking about the politics of Elon Musk. It's just saying you can talk about what you like, but if you criticize something that I like, then we aren't going to be friends anymore. I'm going to unsubscribe to your channel, which is kind of difficult because it means that I am only allowed to present information that fully accords with your entire political stance, which for a geopolitical channel is A, impossible, and B, just nonsensical. But it also is a form of inoculating yourself and insulating yourself from alternate views. If you'd say that I'm going to unsubscribe to you if you criticize this person or this political viewpoint, it means I will only ever exist in an echo chamber that conforms to my political viewpoint. Now you can say that we all do that to an extent. Of course we do. We all have confirmation biases where we're going to much more likely read sources that support our own worldviews and points. Yes, this is a challenge for us all. I'm not saying this is a problem you have and I don't have it, but I'm just trying to explain why there is an awful lot of this going on that one particular thread to do with Elon Musk. It's because Elon Musk is an extension of these people's identity to some extent, right? Right. If they say I accord with his political stance, and therefore if you attack Elon Musk, I'm really going to have issues with that because you're attacking my political um, my politics or my political psychology or whatnot. And the problem with these, not all of these. So some of these people we've had some decent conversations with. Other people are just like attacking me for being completely blind, biased, and etc. 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 But the problem is almost all of these, at least initially, and this is to talk about the Elon Jet and the suspension and banning of the uh, journalists. All of these people actually had a factually incorrect understanding of what happened in this whole Twitter ban journalist scenario. So you're attacking me and saying you're so biased and you're wrong because of this, but the this was factually incorrect. And so therefore your criticisms against me, and this is what frustrates me, is that we need to do something about this because like criticizing me from a position of factual incorrectness is an issue. And I'm going to go back and just give you a bit of grounding or a bit of context around Elon Musk with regard to the Ukraine war. But before I do that, it's worth taking into account the great philosopher and logician Bertrand Russell, who said, if an opinion contrary to your own makes you angry, this is a sign that you are subconsciously aware of having no good reason for thinking as you do. If someone maintains that 2 and 2 are 5, or that Iceland is on the equator, you should feel pity rather than anger, unless you know so little of arithmetic or geography that his opinion shakes your own contrary conviction. The most savage controversies are those about matters as to which there is no good evidence either way. Persecution is used in theology, not in arithmetic, because in arithmetic there is knowledge, but in theology there is only opinion. So whenever you find yourself getting angry about a difference of opinion, be on your guard. You'll probably find on examination that your belief is going beyond what the evidence warrants. So let's start getting into the context of him, Musk involved in the Ukraine war. What we had was, well, he owns Starlink, which is a kind of this satellite setup that the Ukrainians were using, and they were using free of charge. So that was all very nice of Musk to do that. And they were using that to communicate using satellite links, and this was enabling them to get A, really good intelligence, but B, also to communicate with frontline troops, with the rear and everything like that. And then at a point some months back, Musk went, well, actually, this has costed $80 million at the moment. And there are some arguments over whether his claims about the amount it cost were accurate or not. And he's saying, actually, the American government needs to be paying for this, which is absolutely fair enough. You know, he's not a charity. But the problem is he then started tinkering, and there were claims that he actually brought down Starlink during the Kherson offensive. So this then caused them to have outages that actually arguably cost lives. So they were unable to communicate in the Kherson area. They had forward units unable to communicate with the rear. Artillery was unable to help support them. And it all kind of fell apart for a good few days. And this caused quite a lot of consternation as Ukrainians were starting to get frustrated, and I think it was maybe to try and force the American government to start taking up some of the cost of that. Anyway, I'm not quite sure where that is at the moment as far as who's paying for Starlink, but that's kind of what was happening, and then we had this situation with appeasement. So Musk has been has favoured Ukraine conceding territory to Russia and wanting there to be peace. And the question is, why is this? That's the biggest question. You know, why does he want that? But this became really divisive. So he was saying things like Ukraine-Russia peace, that they should redo the elections of the annexed regions under the UN supervision. Russia leaves if that is the will of the people, but otherwise Crimea is formally part of Russia and has been since 1783 until Khrushchev's mistake. So again, that is a Russian propaganda position, right? So he's sucking up the Russian narrative there. He's then saying the water supply to Crimea is assured. So not only should Crimea be ceded to Russia, if the populace says so, but Ukraine should provide fresh water to Crimea. Should provide their own fresh water, and Ukraine remains neutral. And then he puts this out to a poll, and he said lots of other things to the point where Zelensky then came in and said, which Elon Musk do you like more, the one who supports Ukraine or the one who supports Russia? And the problem is he was using polling, this is Musk I'm talking about, was using polling from before the annexation of Crimea to support the fact that the Crimean people supported Russia. And of course, that is completely redundant polling, but he's cherry picking that to support his own narrative. Anyway, the point is that he's a big appeaser of Russia here in trying to end the war, and that has really annoyed the Ukrainians to the point that they've now started like plastering over or putting. There are big billboards of Elon Musk, and they've now sort of covered over those with other adverts and whatnot because they were pretty annoyed. Anyway, that's the situation there. So if you are really pro Ukraine and you're a massive fan of Musk, you need to kind of navigate that quite carefully, because those two things are don't sit well together, because it seems that Elon Musk is, to some extent at least, something of an appeaser, to the point where Fiona Hill said that who was a White House under Trump, a White House advisor, has said that he is a mouthpiece of Putin, Elon Musk. The question is he, and why is that? So this might come down to the fact, and this is an interesting opinion piece by On The Verge, called "What on Earth is Going On with Elon Musk and Ukraine," written by Elizabeth Lepato back in October, end of October, talking about an awful lot of different stuff here. But she says that one of his friends is an investor in SpaceX called David Sachs, and he's one of these kind of appeasers because for financial reasons, you know, and it's probably not that Musk is going to be listening to Putin, but he'll be listening to his friend David Sachs. Anyway, that might be interesting to understand why Musk is positioning himself in the way he is with regard to Ukraine. There are other things to take into account. So Musk apparently has cut off Ukrainians from Twitter, and that's happened really within the last week. So it turns out you can't get a new Twitter account with a Ukrainian telephone number anymore. And this is the Odessa Journal sort of reporting on this, saying, you know, what's going on there. So again, there's this tension between Ukraine and Elon Musk, and something is happening there. Anyway, whilst all this has been happening, Musk has also taken over Twitter, right? So this is something I think he was forced to do because he was going to take it over. Then he didn't want to take it over, got cold feet, but because he made this kind of opening offer, there was something in the contract there where he actually had to buy at this particular rate. So he's ended up the cheapest thing for him to do was to actually buy Twitter in the end. That's how I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong. So he's ended up owning Twitter, but Twitter is a very divisive platform because prior to him taking over, they were trying to navigate the kind of free speech world, and that's really difficult because they've had to shut down people, and a lot of people on the right saying you've shut down these people on the right, but if you're trying to protect society against hate speech and meddling with elections and also misinformation about a deadly virus, that's a really difficult space to navigate. And there are lots of you will have different opinions on that for sure, but moderation in those contexts is just a minefield. The issue is if you let everything go, then places can become dangerous and it also becomes cesspits. And if you don't sort out the extremes, then the people in the middle, which is a vast majority of society, would just leave. So actually it's in their best, not just a moral positioning for Twitter to kind of try and moderate the extremes, but actually it's a business decision too. And a bit more to say on Musk in terms of Ukraine. So this is from the Atlantic Council memo to Elon Musk. Only Ukrainian victory can stop Vladimir Putin. So this is the essence of the deeply flawed argument put forward by US tech billionaire Elon Musk on social media in recent days. Musk garnered headlines for his Kremlin-friendly peace proposals, but in reality, he's merely one of many voices in the West calling on Ukraine to abandon millions of its citizens to perpetual Russian occupation in order to end Europe's biggest armed conflict since World War II. And then Elon Musk and other self-styled realists failed to grasp that Russia currently has far more reason than Ukraine to seek the off-ramp from the conflict, even if it may be hard to swallow for Russians. Russia is now clearly losing the war and has suffered a string of humiliating defeats on the eastern and southern fronts over the past month. Ukrainian forces are receiving some of the best weapons in the world, along with the financial, intelligence, and military support of NATO and other global partners. Ukrainian morale is high, with soldiers fighting to free their homeland and their families from occupation, and so on and so forth. The arguments for Musk not to take on that appeasement position are really very strong. Um, Ukrainians want peace, but not at any price. Crucially, they recognize that unless they are victorious, their homeland will cease to exist. Elon Musk and other proponents of land for peace proposals need to understand that the single best way to bring peace to Ukraine is by sending the weapons that will secure a Ukrainian victory. There is no middle ground between Russia's goal of destroying Ukraine and Ukraine's own will to survive. 100% agreement from me there. And you can see there's lots of talk about Elon Musk being under fire for tweeting a Ukraine peace plan which cedes Crimea to Russia. There's Bloomberg reporting on that. Just it wasn't a good move. So first of all, here the people are saying, right, Elon Musk was doxed, or his son was doxed. So doxing is where you give out private information about where someone lives, so on and so forth, and you put it out in the public sphere so that they can get harassed, right? Now, what happened is the other night, Elon Musk's child, 2-year-old child, was in a car and someone jumped onto the hood of that car and started harassing that car. And the idea was that the uh, Elon Musk then said this is because the Elon Jet Twitter handle doxed uh, me and my whereabouts, and my son was the unwitting victim of this. And the problem is that isn't actually what happened. It's what Elon Musk claims. And so when loads of people here are making claims about me being wrong, they are actually just taking hook, line, and sinker what Elon Musk has said, but there is absolutely no evidence for what he said. And it wasn't doxing at all, because let's now explain what happened. There was a Twitter handle that has existed for some time, actually, called Elon Jet, started up by some 20-year-old at the time, who I think was actually a fan of Elon Musk at the time, and started up this Twitter handle that took uh, public, publicly available information on uh, Musk's the whereabouts of Musk's plane, the private jet, and just put that on Twitter. Now, this is ostensibly absolutely no different from any flight tracker. So this is publicly available information. Any flight tracker you can come across it will give you the details of where a plane is at any point in time. The fact that this is a private jet might give you a slight bit of difference, but if you're going to give the information of any jet anywhere in time, you could call that doxing. It doesn't give you the information who's on a jet at all. Nothing to do with anything outside of just the information on where that jet is. So, as the Wikipedia page says, and this is decent, again, know your sources. So, uh, but this is just general information about what is this Twitter handle. The Elon Jet account uses publicly available flight data as well as an automated computer program, a Twitter bot, to report Elon Musk's flights. The account utilizes ADS-B data, publicly available records, to give general details about where and when Musk's private jet was taking off and landing, though it cannot indicate who is on board and where the passengers traveled before or after the flight. Right, so this is the incorrect information that people have been accusing me that they were doxing Elon Musk, down to the point where, look, someone says, what is the motive of a journalist who gives the location of Elon Musk? No one has done that, and the journalist certainly didn't do that, right? And I'll explain that in a second. So the account became a reliable way for Musk's investors, fans, and critics to determine his whereabouts, often between the Austin area where he lives, the San Francisco Bay Area where Tesla's factory is, and Southern California where SpaceX is headquartered. So on and so forth. Now, Elon Musk has had an issue with this account for some time and has tried to get it shut down, and then said no, he wouldn't. And then there was an offer to try and so actually Jack Sweeney, who owns the account, said he'd take $50,000 and he would be an intern for Musk, one of Musk's companies, and he'd shut it down. It didn't get taken up by Musk. And then what happened is this incident where someone jumped on the hood of the car, which his 2-year-old was in. Musk wasn't even in there. And then Musk connected that incident with Elon Jet and said, this is doxing. They know where I am. Jumped on this car. When actually Elon Jet, all it does is tell you where his private jet is. Okay. So then what happened is, prior to this, journalists were talking about Elon Jet. And some journalists weren't even linking to Elon Jet, but were just reporting on things, reporting on journalists who were banned for reporting on Elon Jet. Anyway, it turns out that Elon Musk not only shut down and banned the Elon Jet account, but also banned a bunch of journalists who were making articles that included Elon Jet in it, and ban them. Now, it gets a little bit confusing here because there are lots of claims and counterclaims. but what he also did, which is a little bit dodgy, is he changed the Twitter rules the night before and then banned Elon Jet and banned a bunch of journalists. In other words, they weren't violating the rules of Twitter until he changed the rules of Twitter so that he could ban them. Right? Those rules changed the night before. Now, you could argue they were good rules or not, but actually, by changing those rules, he has invalidated geolocators from doing their work in the open source intelligence community as well, in following entities live and reporting that to the open source intelligence community. So there is that. So he made that anti-doxing policy on Wednesday, and then fired everyone, banned everyone on Thursday. And this became pretty controversial. So Twitter's newly revised private information and media policy now forbids users from sharing live location information, including information shared on Twitter directly or links to third-party URLs of travel routes, actual physical location, or other identifying information that will reveal a person's location, regardless if this information is publicly available, which is really interesting. So they can't even share publicly available information on Twitter. No, it's a bit of a problem. And again, that you can see why that would affect the geolocation and open source intelligence community. Now, to give you some further context, I wrote an article yesterday called "I'm a Free Speech Absolutist," and it's about Elon Musk. And it is worth saying that he has called himself a free speech absolutist, right? Sorry to be a free speech absolutist. So he calls himself a free speech absolutist. What does that mean? It means that someone can say whatever they like, and there is no line to say that that is unacceptable and that is acceptable. In other words, he absolutely allows anything to be said. That is what he's saying there. He also has said previously, back in April, "I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means," right? So he's a free speech absolutist who allows his worst critics to remain on Twitter. And yet here he is then saying, actually, you can't say that and I'm going to ban you. But it's slightly more complex than that. So he claims he banned them for doxing when they didn't actually dox. And some of these journalists, as I'm just about to show you, didn't even report on Elon Jet, but they were just, I think, a bit critical of Elon Musk. This is from a PBS article written yesterday, a journalist who wrote about owner Elon Musk suspended from Twitter. And it talks about all the different ones who were banned. And the idea is that he said they're only suspended. Well, actually, some of these journalists had, and they've taken screenshots of this. The claim was that they were permanently banned. So actually, they weren't just suspended for a week, as Musk claimed. So again, believing everything Musk says is a problem, because he is showing himself not to be entirely trustworthy. So we have several of the reporters suspended Thursday night had been writing about the new policy and Musk's rationale for imposing it, which involved his allegations about a stalking incident he said affected his family on Tuesday night in Los Angeles. So these reporters were reporting on that incident, and including Elon Jet and the link to Elon Jet. Then they ended up being suspended. So what Musk said is same doxing rules apply to journalists as to everyone else. Of course, those are the rules that were only put in place the night before. Musk tweeted on Thursday. He later added, "Criticizing me all day long is totally fine, but doxing my real-time location and endangering my family is not." The thing is, they absolutely did not dox his real-time location. There is no evidence to suggest that happened. And in fact, so these journalists were just reporting on Elon Jet, but even if you followed the link of Elon Jet through to Elon Jet, it just tells you where his private jet is, which is publicly available information. So he wasn't being doxed in real time, and arguably wasn't endangering his family. There is no known connection for this guy on the hood of the car that was carrying his son to Elon Jet. So the Washington Post executive editor, Sally Busby, called for technology reporter Drew Harwell's Twitter account to be reinstated immediately. The suspension, quote, directly undermines Elon Musk's claim that he intends to run Twitter as a platform dedicated to free speech. Busby wrote, Harwell was banished without warning, process, or explanation following the publication of his accurate reporting about Musk. This is just an article he wrote about Musk, and was banned for that. CNN said, the impulsive and unjustified suspension of a number of reporters, including CNN's Donnie Sullivan, is concerning but not surprising. Twitter's increasing instability and volatility should be of incredible concern for everyone who uses Twitter. CNN's statement added, "We have asked Twitter for an explanation, and we will reevaluate our relationship based on that response." Another suspended journalist, Matt Binder, of the technology news outlet Mashable, said he was banned Thursday night immediately after sharing a screenshot that O'Sullivan had posted before his own suspension. So Binder hadn't actually got involved in anything, just retweeted a screenshot from O'Sullivan and ended up being banned. I did not share any location data as per Twitter's new terms, nor did I share any links to Elon Jet or other location tracking accounts, Binder said in an email. I have been highly critical of Musk, but never broke any of Twitter's listed policies, which goes completely against what Musk said, which is criticizing me all day long is totally fine, but doxing my real-time location and endangering my family is not. He didn't do that. But he was critical of you, and he's now gone. We'll come on to that in a second. So on and so forth. So Binder said in a message he received while trying to access his Twitter account showed that his suspension was permanent, but Musk later suggested the penalty would last a week in response to a question about his suspension of former ESPN and MSNBC host Keith Olbermann. So on and so forth. Now, what happened yesterday is that there was a Twitter Spaces, which is kind of a live hangout that you can have of a whole bunch of journalists, which was run by Katie Notopoulos, and Musk was on there, and it was a kind of way to discuss things with Musk and Musk interacting with the press. Anyway, they started pressuring him on these bans and asking him questions, and he stormed off. And that was really interesting. So, and it turns out that some of the banned accounts were on there, like Dean Harwell, but because actually you could still at the time access Twitter Spaces even if you'd had a suspended account. So anyway, he went off. He didn't like being questioned about that. And then after that, Katie Notopoulos had her ability to host Twitter Spaces removed, and she'd done nothing wrong. Like, she was just hosting that Twitter space with other journalists. In other words, Elon Musk is acting like a child here and just lashing out at anyone who's critical of him. Another suspended reporter, Steve Harmon of Voice of America, said he assumes he was banned, quote, because I was tweeting about other journalists being suspended for tweeting about accounts being booted that had linked to the Elon Jet feed. So again, I want to return to these accusations against me. These are factually incorrect. These people were not giving doxing data of Elon Musk. They were, at most, some of the journalists mentioned Elon Jet, the handle, and probably hyperlinked it in their articles, because that's what journalists do, right? And they were banned for that. The other half of the journalists were banned. Why? No one really knows. Because it looks like it's because they were critical of Elon Musk. In other words, Elon Musk just exhibiting authoritarian behavior and closing down free speech, the very thing that he says he said he's a free speech absolutist, and is clearly not. You can go to my article if you want to listen to the recording of Musk's sort of storming or removing himself from that Twitter space. It's there. Also, some of the things that people were banned for. And another thing that Musk has done is people were linking in their bios to Mastodon, because there's this big exodus from Twitter to Mastodon now, which is a competitor to Twitter. And he's now got the coders to block any, so you're unable to link to Mastodon at all, or most of the big Mastodon servers. You can't put in your Twitter bio your Mastodon handle. And if you try to open a Mastodon link, it says it's malware, which is highly controversial and in itself may be against competition rules. I know that his suspending of the journalists is potentially against, as I've talked about here, against EU regulation, and the UN has even got involved to say they're not really happy with curtailing the free speech of journalists. So really interesting ramifications of all of this. Now, the interesting thing to say here is that of all these people who have criticized me for saying Musk was wrong, I'd like to know what they think now, because Musk has, a day later, re-enabled all the Twitter accounts by putting out a poll. He's obviously just deferring responsibility for his own decision making to the public, just so that you can blame them if it's the wrong decision, rather than take it responsibility himself. Because I don't know, he's unable to be a moral decision maker. But he said, should I allow them back? Should I allow them back tomorrow, 7 days from now, or longer? And the majority of people, the largest minority of people, was bring them back. So he's brought them back. In other words, that is an implicit acceptance that he made the wrong decision. And so, therefore, how do you feel about that? So, if I was completely wrong yesterday, am I right now? Like, I don't know whether this changes people's opinions about what has gone on here. And I just want to return to some of these opinions. Wow, you need to look at yourself too if you think enabling attacks on kids is a good thing. Like, so public flight data, like public information on flight data, is enabling attacks on kids, and I think that's good. So that just goodness me. Stick to Ukraine. We have enough mainstream political opinion. Well, uh, this is my channel, and this is what I want to talk about. And you know, you are free to vote with your feet and go where you want. But I think it's useful to interact with this stuff. Surely we've got, again, what's the motive of a journalist? But that's factually incorrect. Incorrect. Doxing is why these people were removed from Twitter. That's why Elon Musk said they're removed, but they weren't doxing, and none of the journalists were doxing. And at most, they only linked to Elon Jet, and some of the journalists didn't even do that. A fair bit of lying going on here. The information being revealed and linked to Musk's location was not public information. Well, actually, it wasn't linking to his location; it was linking to his jet's location, and that is public information. So again, just disagree with me all you like. I feel that if your son is being stalked through a Twitter account, that's not what was happening. You will do exactly as Musk did. I hope you would do the same if you had the chance. Furthermore, his views on doxing are quite clear. You'll get kicked out of Twitter. No, they were only clear the night before when he changed those rules. He only changed those rules the night before, and then he kicked out a bunch of people who clearly didn't dox. So again, that's factually incorrect. I mean, this is a decent enough, respectful enough comment, by the way, but it's just factually incorrect. You may argue that Musk is not being doxed, I do, but he may feel otherwise, as his exact position is being made available. No, it's not. Literally, and we know it's not because they attacked the car that had his son in, and he wasn't there. So it wasn't his exact position. The Elon Jet can't tell you anything about who's in what car. It tells you where a jet is as it takes off and as it lands, and there you go, and possibly as it's in the air using flight data. So again, a bummer. People's residence being confidential. Again, factually incorrect. It's nothing about his residence. It's about his plane. Now on Twitter, you can no longer say where people live, where they're going to be. So the Antifa, the Black Lives, no longer know where they're going to attack and kill. Again, all this tells me is this is someone who is absolutely obsessed with right-wing talking points, and Antifa being the enemy and being the evil of everything, and BLM being absolutely terrible. And so that tells me everything I need to know about where this kind of thing is coming from. And it goes back to this image of like all these bits of identity politics, all the stuff that makes up who you are and who your position is, and you feel that is being attacked, and therefore you attack back. And there's going to be stuff like BLM thrown in here, and you'll connect that to that to that to that. Trump, Musk, republicanism, or whatever makes up your identity. And this again, it works exactly for the other side. So this could be BLM, equality, the Democrats. It could be progressives. It could be AOC. Whether you like them or hate them, they're going to be in your sense of core identity here. And if that gets challenged, again, it's the all or nothing. You've criticized an aspect of that person in their entirety is in my core identity, so therefore you're attacking me, so therefore I'm going to attack you back. And it's that defensive stance. Anyway, all I'm trying to do is try and clear up some of the data around what is going on here. Hopefully, defend my own position my position is that Elon Musk, in certain contexts, things like SpaceX and Tesla, is probably absolutely brilliant, although there are some really big questions about his management style, and how he has to be managed himself because he's a bit bonkers. But he might be brilliant over there, but I think with Twitter, he is less than brilliant, and and you tell that because there's a mass exodus from Twitter. So if he wants Twitter to become Parler or Gab, brilliant, he's doing a great job, but that's not a great business model, and he will lose the vast majority of the bell curve of humanity in the middle. Um, I don't think he's very good at managing Twitter, and I also disagree with much of his politics, uh, and therefore this. But if you agree with all this politics, then fair enough. But let's have a chat about that in a respectful way, rather than just unsubscribing and inoculating yourself. Challenge me. Where am I wrong? How am I wrong? And we could get onto a big debate about free speech. And I said in my last video that free speech is a bit of a broken concept, because we all have our own lines we draw, where we say that's unacceptable and that's acceptable. You can't say that and you shouldn't say that. And if you do say that, then something should be done to correct you from saying that, because that is deeply inappropriate in this context. You can't shout fire in a crowded theatre. You can't stand up in a class as a 12-year-old and swear and shout and scream for 10 minutes nonstop, including racial slurs at your teacher. Like, that's not acceptable. So we need to make sure that you don't do that. There are rules in place that you don't do that. We moderate you. If you find that there are positions of free speech that are unacceptable, then you are not a free speech absolutist. So Elon Musk has shown himself, he's claimed he's a free speech absolutist and shown himself not to be a free speech absolutist. So when I say he's hypocritical, that's what I mean, right? And so, lots of people say, well, you're hypocritical. And what about Twitter as it was before? You didn't say anything then. And no, I'm talking about Musk here. Like, let's stop doing this kind of like whataboutery or tu quoque fallacy. What about you? No, this is about Musk, and I'm making a claim on Musk, and I'm saying that he has been hypocritical here, and in fact, I also don't think he's at all justified in doing those what were actually permanent bans, but suspensions that appear to have been overturned already. Anyway, there you go. Hopefully, that was of some interest to y'all. I really appreciate you hanging out and putting up with my stream of consciousness here. Toodle pips, and I'll see you in another video.